What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping back in with some Destiny 2 news and roundups in this video. So we're going to speak about the future of Destiny, we've got some interesting new words from Activision about why the Destiny partnership ended, and this opens up some very interesting discussion about future content for Destiny itself. So we'll talk about that and some other franchise related news, but of course we'll also speak about the Dreaming City where the story continues. We get some really interesting dialogue about Oryx and his sister's plan for the Dreaming City, so we'll break down what all of that means and what's about to happen in Dreaming City, but we'll also talk about the Crimson Days event, of course everyone's absolute favourite right now. We'll talk about some of the rewards, some secret triumphs, and we've got a bunch of other news and roundups related to Destiny in this video guys, so as always, if you enjoyed this video, a rating is very much appreciated below, but now let's get straight into it. So first up, today guys, we're going to speak about the Activision and Bungie split. Of course, this is something we've known about for a few weeks, and it's left many of us wondering what is going to happen next. How are Bungie going to produce new content for the game? And of course, that raises questions about Destiny 2's lifecycle, as well as potential changes for Destiny 3. Now, Activision had an earnings call yesterday, where they gave a few more words about the Activision-Bungie split, and this potentially confirms something we've previously heard about future content for Destiny 2 in Year 3. So Cody Johnson from Activision said, "We're confident that this is the right decision for both parties. Bungie get to focus on their own IP, and we can focus on our most promising franchises." He said, "First, as you know, we didn't own the underlying Destiny IP, and we do for all of our other major franchises, which we think is not just a differentiator for us in the industry, but also controlling the underlying IP gives us the chance to move into new experiences and new engagement models, which also come with new revenue streams, and of course, structurally higher economics when you own the IP." And that leads to probably the second factor in the decision process, which is that Destiny is highly critically acclaimed, high quality content, but was not meeting our financial expectations. And this is a pretty important quote right here. As we went through our financial planning for 2019, it indicated that Destiny would not have been a material contributor into our business. And he added that the third reason was essentially that Activision were putting a lot of developer talent into Destiny, and Bungie was tying up some of their other studios, which now under this arrangement will be freed up after a short transition period. And of course that is in reference to High Moon Studios and Vicarious Visions, who have also been producing Destiny content. So it gives us a bit of extra colour to Activision's perspective right here, but that interesting quote about the financial planning for 2019 indicating that Destiny would not have been a material contributor is a pretty interesting one. Previously, we had a leak that we would be getting a Year 3 annual pass for Destiny 2, so instead of having a big September expansion, basically we'd carry on getting annual pass updates for the game. And that Activision quote definitely indicates that this is possibly true, because of course, with a Forsaken-sized expansion, Activision would anticipate seeing higher profits, even if they weren't quite meeting their expectations. However, with more of an annual pass model, without a big launch to kick it off, of course, the amount of people actually purchasing that annual pass would be much lower than if Bungie were releasing a huge expansion. So I think at this point it definitely looks like, at least when Activision and Bungie were still working together, there was no plan for a September expansion of this year. Of course that isn't absolutely confirmed, and considering the split with Bungie and Activision, it is possible that Bungie could go in a different direction now, but the interesting question would be the timeline, because of course, if the plan changed in late December of last year, that would only give Bungie, 9 or 10 months to come up with something big for September, if that is indeed what they plan to do. So I just wanted to break that down for you guys. It gives us a bit more of an idea of what could happen, but of course we are still left waiting for Bungie to talk about the future of the game beyond the annual pass this year. Something else to know on this subject though, is that a huge number of job cuts were officially announced at Activision, and this was at the same time as their earnings call began with quotes about how 2018 was one of their best and most profitable years. Nonetheless, Activision are doing some pretty huge restructuring, and that means something like 800 jobs are now gone. And the sad thing for us as Destiny players is that almost certainly quite a few of those jobs would have been linked to publishing Destiny. So obviously not very fun for the folks who've been affected by this, but nonetheless it does look like it's going to be a pretty tough year for Activision Blizzard. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts or speculation about this. I know these announcements aren't necessarily the most exciting, but they definitely do pertain to the future of Destiny as a franchise. So in the end, this is pretty important stuff, guys, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about it below. Before we talk about Dreaming City stuff, of course recently we've learned a little bit about March Update 2.2.0, and this is basically the Season 6 update for the game, which is going to be landing sometime shortly after the 4th of March as far as we know. One of the big announcements recently is that One-Eyed Mask will indeed be seeing a nerf in this update, and that definitely indicates we'll probably see some other major sandbox adjustments, and that could include exotics for various classes. So we'll link a video with more details about that down below. We could possibly have an imminent reveal though. In last week's TWAB, Bungie did say, "Stay tuned to the news page for details about when Season 6 begins. So it seems something will be revealed very shortly, but I'll have to keep you guys posted. Now though, let's move on to the Dreaming City stuff for this week. Some pretty interesting stuff going on. Of course, recently Marasov has left the Queen's Court, and we made our final broadcast to her last week. So this week, if you go and make the Oracle offering, you'll actually find Sadia in the place of the Oracle engine. We can see the dialogue here. Our Lady the Queen has left us, but please help yourself to whatever you can find. Gifts are the least that we can offer to you. And so that also confirms that the mechanics with the Oracle offering, the Queen's Court and stuff like that should continue as they have, despite the changes in the story. But the more interesting dialogue for this week actually came from the Oracle engine mission. So we get dialogue from Sadia once again right here, and she says, "Do you remember Oryx? You may have defeated him, but you never knew him. You never knew his sisters. When I was taken, I was an extension of their will, a sharp claw on an outstretched hand, and I understood their desire. I dare not speak a word of what I know." And our ghost actually says, "The more we know, the better the odds will beat this curse." And Sadia snaps, "Knowledge means nothing. Whatever you know will be stripped away and used against you. I lived it." So actually some pretty interesting dialogue right there. Of course we get the Oryx reference, the Taken King from back in the day, but Sadia also references Oryx's sisters, Savathun and Sivu Arath, which of course, despite what we know from the lore, is only extra confirmation of their involvement with the curse in the Dreaming City. But when she says, "I dare not speak of what I know," that's a pretty interesting quote, because as far as we can tell, Sadia has seen the Hive plan and knows what they're trying to do. And this is where it links back to the Dreaming City. Savathun, the sister of Oryx, or the Witch Queen, mother of Dul and Karud from the Shattered Throne, as far as we know, is orchestrating the curse in the Dreaming City. Now, the thing that Sadia knows, the thing that she dares not speak a word of, is actually the plan that Savathun is trying to implement. And one of the common theories, on top of what's already going on in Dreaming City, is that ultimately the Hive are trying to gain access to the Distributory. And this is the actual homeworld of the Awoken. And from our understanding, this Awoken homeworld is actually located inside of a black hole. And because of how fast time is actually passing inside of the Distributory, Savathun believes that she can use this to create more suffering, more killing, to fuel the Hive Sword logic at a much faster rate. And that's essentially a very basic description of what Savathun is trying to do in the Dreaming City. Use it to access an Awoken homeworld that she can essentially use to become much more powerful than she is right now. But in terms of how all of this concludes, of course there are questions about Aldrin and the Queen, but huge spoiler alert here, if you want to skip ahead, we are going to talk about breaking the curse a little bit. Breaking the curse is something that we believe is going to happen. There are other Awoken lines in the game files, and one of them from Sadia reads, "In time, I believe we will open a portal that leads to the heart of the curse." So to imagine that in gameplay terms, imagine if a portal opened up somewhere in the Dreaming City, a new one, presumably that isn't the Shattered Throne, and potentially leads us to what is creating this curse, and potentially a pretty interesting boss fight with Courier, or Hive that could be associated with this as well. And who knows, maybe this portal is located at the top of the bridge that we know, or at least Bungie have showed us, can be accessed at some point in the future. So yeah, another week has passed, but of course things will get more interesting next week when we have the first visit to Queen's Court without the presence of Marasov, since she has left on a more permanent basis. So we'll have to see what happens next week. I think that could be the interesting one. But yeah, let me know your thoughts about that stuff. Definitely gets us closer to the actual story of what's happening in Dreaming City and the potential stuff that is going to happen down the road. Now though, let's speak about Crimson Days. There's been some mixed feedback on this event because the event is definitely fairly small. There's a lot of returning stuff from last year, and of course just a few additional rewards. One of those would include the Vow Bow, possibly something you've picked up by now. Fairly easy to actually get this if you complete just the Nightfall bounty, and then a couple of other daily bounties. And it's a pretty decent weapon, has some of the best stats for a lightweight frame bow. And you've got Rapid Hit, rapid precision hits temporarily increase stability and reload speed, but you've also got Archer's Tempo, draw time decreases after every precision hit. And that allows you to fire rounds from the bow very, very quickly. So it's a pretty decent weapon, good stats. It could do okay in PvP and PvE, although for me, for PvE in general, I don't think it has the absolute best bonuses. Let me know your thoughts about the Vow down below. There are, however, a couple of secret triumphs inside of Crimson Days this year. Funnily enough, these won't give you a triumph score or anything, but they'll be unlocked when completing certain objectives. So firstly, defeat enemies with Crimson in the Crimson Doubles playlist. We've also got Fireworks, wipe the enemy team using the Two-Tailed Fox, once again in the Crimson Doubles playlist, and there is another one to avenge teammates with the Vigilance Wing. So just interesting that there are a couple of hidden triumphs there. But of course the only other thing I can really suggest for this event, if you are playing but don't necessarily care about the event too much, would just be to try and complete some of the bounties if you want extra chances at enhancement cores, because you can turn those in for a warm-hearted gift package, which pretty much behaves like a drop from the Dawning, where you give a Dawning gift to a vendor. Otherwise, that's about it for Crimson Days this year. I can understand some of the mixed feedback on the event. It's definitely not the most hype. Let me know if you've jumped into Crimson Doubles or anything down below in the comment section though. That's going to round up the bulk of the video, guys. Another quick quick shout for this week would be to potentially pick up the Rustpunk shell available at Eververse. It allows you to get the chest detector bonuses on any location, which is actually pretty unusual. That bonus has only been available I think a couple of times, and you also get increased glimmer from every source as well, so it's a really good general ghost shell that has benefits in a bunch of different places. Of course, it doesn't have the 10% XP, but otherwise it does have bonuses that don't roll out very often on ghost shells, so definitely worth considering picking it up this week if it sounds useful. Another quick shout, something I'd like to point out. Scooby DZ over on Reddit posted this really cool Destiny universe timeline, and it's basically a breakdown of all of the known events in the Destiny universe, but broken down in the order that they actually happen. So you've got kind of the creation of the Traveler, the Hive story, big events in the world like the Battle of Twilight Gap, and then the resurrection of our Guardian, and of course the events that we've seen throughout Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. But it's just pretty cool to see it on a timeline like this. I'll link it down below if you want to check it out in full. Once again, shout out to Scooby DZ and the Ghost Stories podcast to actually help put all of this together. But otherwise, guys, that is going to summarize the video for today. So let me know your thoughts on the Activision changeover, what you think could happen with Destiny content moving forward. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on the Dreaming City and what's happening there, or Crimson Days this year. But if you have enjoyed this video, guys, a rating is very much appreciated down below. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe if you want to see more Destiny 2 content. But for now, as always, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you have an awesome day.